so thankful that she was able to share her light to so many people. Yeah, I'll never get to see her get married, have kids, buy her first house.
4 people are now charged with first-degree murder in the shooting death of Chicago police officer Ariana Preston.
The shift ended at midnight. Ariana Preston clocked out, got in her car, and headed home through Chicago's South Side. Same route she'd taken 100 times before. 24 years old, 3 years on the force, 2 years into her master's program at Loyola. In 72 hours, she'd walk across that stage with her degree. 72 hours. She pulled into her driveway in Avalon Park at 1:42 in the morning, still wearing her uniform, badge still visible on her chest. 4 masked figures stepped out of a car, guns already out, no hesitation. Ariana returned fire. She hit nothing. They hit her twice, face, neck. One of them took her service weapon off her body while she was dying. Then they left. And here's what cracked the whole case open. One of them couldn't keep quiet, bragged about it to a friend the next day, called it my work. That friend went straight to the police. Ariana didn't fall into this career by accident. She picked it, deliberately. South Side Chicago. Strong family foundation. Parents who didn't just raise their kids, they shaped them. Structure wasn't something forced on Ariana and her siblings. It was something they learned to value. Discipline, purpose, a clear sense of direction. Her younger brothers and sisters didn't just live in the same house with her. They watched her, learned from her, followed her lead. For Ariana, rules weren't restrictions. They were the framework for building something solid, something lasting. Illinois State University. Criminal justice major. She locked in from day one. No switching directions, no second guessing. She knew what she wanted, and she stayed on that path all the way through graduation. Most people hit that point and take a break. Travel. Decompress. Figure out what's next. Not Ariana. She enrolled immediately in Loyola University Chicago's master's program. At the same time, she was working full-time as a Chicago police officer. Real talk, that's 2 full-time commitments that most people can't juggle separately. She was carrying both at once. Her colleagues in the 5th District knew exactly who she was. Reliable. Not flashy, not out here trying to be some kind of hero, just consistent. She showed up, did the work, took it seriously. The badge wasn't about ego for her. It wasn't theater, it was responsibility. And those overnight shifts? Man, they turn your whole life upside down. You sleep when the sun's out, work when the city's asleep. Family time gets carved out of whatever thin space is left between exhaustion and duty. But Ariana made it work. Case reports in between class assignments, academic research during meal breaks, a master's thesis taking shape slowly while Chicago moved through its darkest hours. By May, she wasn't just approaching graduation. She was right there, 72 hours away. Coursework finished, final requirements completed, ceremony scheduled. She'd even posted a photo on Instagram, cap and gown, big smile, looking proud and ready for whatever came next. The future wasn't some vague idea for Ariana Preston. It was scheduled, confirmed, about to happen. While Ariana was wrapping up her shift that night, 4 young men were wrapping up something entirely different. A robbery spree. Jaylen Frazier, 16 years old, Jaquan Buchanan, 18, Joseph Brooks, 18, Treval Breland, 19. They'd been moving through Chicago's South Side for hours, building momentum. One robbery leading straight into the next. Each success making the next one feel easier, safer, like they couldn't be touched. Around midnight, they targeted a woman near 46th and Ellis. 4 against 1. They came up on her, took her phone, credit cards, belt, wristlet, everything. She didn't resist. The numbers alone were enough to keep her quiet. They didn't need violence, just the threat of it. 40 minutes later, they spotted a red Kia Forte parked near 47th and Indiana. Engine running, nobody inside. They didn't need to break into it, they just took it, and from that point on, that stolen car became their ride for everything that followed that night. 1:07 in the morning. That red Kia pulled up to a house at 100th and Wallace. 3 of them jumped out, shoved 2 people to the ground, grabbed a coach bag and a cell phone, then bounced. 23 minutes after that, a man parking his Tesla near 91st and Merrill became the next victim. They took his phone, his key fob, left him standing there empty-handed. 4 robberies. 90 minutes total. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't people backed into a corner with no other options. This was momentum. Adrenaline. The performance of it. Each crime feeding into the next, lowering the barrier for what came after. And they still weren't satisfied. The red Kia rolled into Avalon Park just after 1:40 in the morning. Quiet streets, soft porch lights, nothing else, moving. Then they spotted her. A woman, alone, walking across her front lawn, police uniform still on, badge catching the light from the street lamp. They didn't see a police officer ending her shift. They didn't see someone 3 days away from finishing a master's degree. They didn't see someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone who had spent years building a future with focus and intention. They saw a target, around 1:42 in the morning. May 6th, shift complete, work done, still in uniform because patrol shifts don't end with some kind of ceremony. You handle the last call, clear the radio, drive home. Her street in Avalon Park looked the same as it did every other night. Quiet, residential, familiar, nothing signaling danger. No raised voices, no conflict spilling into the open. No obvious threat visible anywhere. Just a front lawn, a sidewalk, the ordinary act of coming home after work. Then a vehicle pulled up. Not casual, not slow, deliberate. Doors opened fast. 4 figures emerged almost at the same time. Black clothing, covered faces, weapons already out in their hands. This wasn't a confrontation that escalated. This wasn't dialogue that went wrong. This was a planned attack. Ariana didn't get time to assess what was happening. Training took over. Instinct replaced thought. She did what her training demanded, what her practice prepared her for, what her commitment required if this moment ever came. She fired back. Investigators would eventually recover shell casings from her service weapon scattered across her lawn. Evidence that she didn't freeze, didn't surrender, didn't accept what was happening without responding. In the seconds that followed, gunfire shattered the silence of that block. Not prolonged, not a standoff, just immediate, concentrated violence. She was struck in the face and neck. During the chaos, one of them removed her service weapon from her body. The group fled immediately, got back in their vehicle. The encounter ended as suddenly as it began, leaving behind quiet, blood, and a front lawn transformed from sanctuary to crime scene. Ariana lay wounded outside her home, still uniformed, badge still displayed. A Chicago police officer responding to an unrelated call nearby discovered her, recognized instantly that the victim was one of their own. She'd executed her training perfectly. It didn't save her. What followed wasn't chaotic. It was crushing. Emergency responders arrived. Officers converged on the location. The transition from tactical response to collective grief happened instantly, and it devastated everyone present. She was transported to the hospital, surrounded by people who understood what that uniform represented, people who comprehended the stakes of the profession, people who'd shared identical overnight shifts and routines. Despite every intervention, Ariana Preston was pronounced dead from her injuries. She was 24 years old. The badge didn't protect her. It marked her. As Chicago woke up, the investigation began moving. Chicago doesn't let violence like this slide. Not in residential neighborhoods, not when the victim wears a badge, and not when the crime is this bold. Detectives started reconstructing the night in reverse. Hour by hour, choice by choice, surveillance footage was collected. POD cameras documented movements, vehicles, sequences. Cell phone data began revealing patterns.
A lingering gratitude remains for the profound influence she exerted on the community. The milestones, a wedding, motherhood, a home of her own, remain forever stolen. A quartet of suspects faces first-degree murder charges following the slaying of Chicago officer Ariana Preston. Her watch officially ended at midnight. After signing off, Preston began her familiar commute across the city's south side, following a well-worn path. At 24, with 3 years of service and a nearly finished graduate degree, commencement was 72 hours away. 72 hours left. At 1:42 a.m., she reached her Avalon Park home, still identifiable by her police blues. 4 masked gunmen exited a vehicle, weapons drawn. They did not hesitate. Preston engaged, yet missed. 2 rounds struck her, one in the face, another in the neck. They fled after stripping the dying officer of her pistol. This callous act eventually dismantled their anonymity. A suspect's ego took over. He boasted to an associate about his handiwork, prompting an immediate tip-off. Her badge was a conscious choice, a commitment to the very Southside streets she called home. She possessed deep roots. Her parents were architects of character, rather than mere providers. Order wasn't an external burden. It was a cherished internal compass, defined by resolve and clarity. Her siblings viewed her as much more than just an older sister sharing their home. Observing her, they found a guide. To her, protocol provided the essential skeleton for a meaningful existence. Her focus was absolute from day one as a criminal justice major. No wavering or doubt occurred. She pursued her objective relentlessly until her degree was secured. While peers sought respite or travel after finishing school, she refused to slow her momentum. She transitioned straight into advanced graduate studies at Loyola University. Simultaneously, she balanced her academics with a full-time career in law enforcement. Candidly, managing 2 such demanding roles is a feat most would find impossible to sustain. Within the 5th District, she was respected for her steady reliability. Devoid of ego or pretense, diligence defined her. She viewed her police shield as a solemn obligation rather than a trophy. Beyond the performance of duty, the brutal reality of the graveyard shift completely inverted her world. Resting by day and patrolling by night, she fought to protect precious moments with loved ones. She adapted, drafting case reports alongside her demanding university assignments. Her thesis evolved during quiet breaks while she watched over the city's most dangerous hours. By May, with every credit earned, she stood just 72 hours from her walk across the stage. An Instagram post captured her smiling in her graduation regalia. Radiant and prepared, she saw her future as a concrete, impending reality rather than a dream. As her shift neared its end, 4 individuals were concluding a far more sinister agenda nearby. A spree began involving 16-year-old Jaylen Frazier and 18-year-old Jaquan Buchanan. Alongside 18-year-old Joseph Brooks and 19-year-old Treval Breland, they prowled the South Side for hours. Their confidence surged with every heist, creating a dangerous illusion of total invincibility. At midnight, they swarmed a lone woman, forcibly seizing her cellular device and belongings. They took every last personal item. Faced with overwhelming odds, the victim remained compliant and silent. Menace replaced violence. 40 minutes later, an idling red Kia Forte caught their predatory attention. The unattended running vehicle required no forced entry. They simply climbed in and drove. That purloined vehicle served as the primary vessel for their subsequent wave of terror. At 1:07 a.m., they ambushed 2 people outside a residence, fleeing with their valuables. Within 23 minutes, another target was identified while parking his vehicle. They robbed him of his phone and keys, leaving him stranded in the night. 90 minutes, 4 victims. This wasn't a crime of necessity, but a calculated predatory surge. It was pure momentum and adrenaline, the lethal theater of the hunt. Each crime fueled the next, eroding any remaining moral restraint. Their hunger grew. At 1:40 in the morning, a stolen red Kia glided into Avalon Park. The streets were draped in silence and soft porch lights. Nothing stirred. Then, they locked onto her. A solitary figure crossed a front lawn. She was still in uniform, her badge glinting under the pale yellow glow of a street lamp. To them, she wasn't an officer finishing a long shift or a student 72 hours away from her master's degree. They didn't see a sister or a daughter who had spent years meticulously crafting a future through sheer discipline. At approximately 1:42 in the morning, they saw nothing but a target. May 6th. The work was finished. She wore the uniform home because patrol shifts don't end with fanfare. You simply clear the radio and drive. Avalon Park looked exactly as it always did. It was quiet, residential, and deceptively safe. There were no warning signs, no raised voices or shadows out of place. No visible threats haunted the sidewalk. It was just a patch of grass and a stretch of concrete. She was performing the mundane ritual of returning home when a car pulled up. It wasn't a casual stop. It was a calculated interception. Doors flew open. 4 figures in dark clothing and masks surged out simultaneously, weapons already drawn and ready. This wasn't a heated argument or a robbery gone sideways. This was a cold-blooded ambush. Ariana had no time to process the threat before her training took command. Muscle memory replaced conscious thought. She reacted exactly as she had practiced for the moment every officer hopes never comes. She returned fire. Forensic teams would later find service weapon shell casings peppered across her lawn. The evidence proved she didn't hesitate or beg for mercy. She refused to go down without a fight. Within seconds, a storm of gunfire tore through the neighborhood's silence. It wasn't a standoff. It was a concentrated burst of extreme violence. Rounds struck her in the face and neck. Amid the carnage, one of them stripped the service weapon from her body. The group piled back into the Kia and vanished. The encounter ended as abruptly as it began, leaving blood on a lawn that had been transformed from a sanctuary into a crime scene. Ariana lay dying on her own property, her uniform and badge still marking her identity. A fellow officer, responding to a different call nearby, found her. He knew instantly that the victim was one of their own. She had executed her training to perfection, yet it wasn't enough. The aftermath was a crushing weight of reality. Sirens began to wail as emergency units and fellow officers flooded the block. The shift from tactical precision to collective heartbreak was instantaneous, shattering everyone on the scene. She was rushed to the hospital by people who understood exactly what that uniform stood for. These were peers who knew the stakes, people who had worked those same grueling overnight hours and followed the same routines. Despite every medical effort, Ariana Preston was officially pronounced dead. She was 24. Her badge hadn't protected her. It had made her a mark. As the sun rose over Chicago, the machine of justice began to churn. This city does not let such brazen violence go unanswered. Not in a quiet neighborhood, and certainly not when an officer is the prey. Detectives began the grim task of rewinding the night. They traced every hour and every choice. Surveillance feeds and police cameras began to stitch together a trail of movements and vehicles. Digital footprints from cell towers started revealing the patterns, who was moving in sync and where they were hiding. Ballistics confirmed the links between the weapons used and the brass on the grass. DNA profiles began to name the shadows. What appeared to be a random, anonymous strike began to crumble under the weight of forensic scrutiny. A red Kia Forte, stolen earlier that evening, became the focal point. It was the chariot for a multi-stop crime spree. The suspects eventually torched the car to erase their tracks, but the arson only fueled the investigators' fire. Inside other vehicles linked to the crew, investigators recovered credit cards from previous robbery victims, weaving multiple crimes into a single, violent narrative. This wasn't a solitary mistake. It was a chain of carnage broken finally by arrogance, not an interrogation. Jaylen Frazier, the youngest of the group, couldn't help but talk to a friend. Instead of silence or guilt, he chose to brag. He spoke of the night with a chilling sense of pride, detailing every move. He recounted the robberies, the lone woman they cornered, and the moment she dared to fire back at them. One accomplice returned fire, killing her. He claimed credit for the hit. The witness refused to celebrate. That witness contacted police. A single admission placed the entire group at the crime scene. It proved malice. It matched the forensic trail. Suspicion became a certainty. Hubris, not interrogation, broke the case. Arrests were swift. This was the timeline. 11:57 p.m. A woman robbed near 46th and Ellis by 4 men in a white Avenger. They took everything. A total strip. 12:39 a.m. A red Kia stolen at 47th in Indiana. 10:07 a.m. It arrives at Wallace. 3 men ambush 2 victims. Property seized. 1:30 a.m. A Tesla driver robbed at Merrill. Keys and phone taken. 1:42 a.m. Sensors detect 9 rounds at 8157 South Blackstone. Dispatch delays prevent an immediate police response. 1:51 a.m. A red Kia is reported burning near 72nd and Everhart. 2:02 a.m. A distress signal originates from the scene of the gunfire. No witness called. Preston's Apple Watch automatically alerted dispatch she was in trouble. 2:15 a.m. A patrolling officer finds her. He drives her directly to the hospital in his squad car. Shot in the face and neck. Ballistics confirmed 2 different weapons were used. One was Ariana's. Later, a suspect bragged to a friend about the robberies and the shooting. That friend immediately called the police. Sunday night, police watch a home on 76th. Jaquan Buchanan enters an Uber. Officers stop the car and arrest Buchanan and his associate. Buchanan screamed during the arrest to warn those still inside the house. After a SWAT standoff, the rest were captured. The murder weapon was found. Preston's was gone. A defendant admitted the stolen weapon was sold. All 4 face first-degree murder, armed robbery, and vehicle theft charges. 4 individuals are charged with the murder of Officer Ariana Preston. Police say the group was on a violent spree before the killing. Joni Lum joins us live from headquarters with the update. Joanny, hello Sylvia. Detectives worked through grief. Community help stopped a crew targeting vulnerable women. The suspects are 19-year-olds Treval Breland and Joseph Brooks. Also, 18-year-old Jaquan Buchanan and a minor. They shot Preston at 1:42 a.m. Saturday. The 4 cruised in a stolen Kia, hunting for victims. They committed several crimes before ambushing Officer Preston. Preston was returning from her shift when the stolen car pulled up. They swarmed her. 4 armed men rushing her position. 1 opened fire. Preston managed to shoot back. They continued shooting, stole her weapon, and fled the scene. Even her final arrest from that night wept when she heard the news. It speaks to the profound character of Officer Preston. Commander Pendarvis says these charges help, but the grief remains. Her weapon was stolen and remains missing. The car was torched. All 4 face a judge today. The 16-year-old was charged as an adult due to the crime's brutality. He remains in juvenile detention while the legal process moves forward. Bond was denied. The courtroom was filled with the silent presence of her colleagues. A heavy contingent of Chicago's finest gathered, not for intimidation, but as a silent wall of blue. They stood in grim solidarity, anchoring the grieving family of their fallen sister. They watched 4 teenagers face a reckoning for choices made in seconds but felt for decades. No shouting broke the stillness. No chaos ensued. Only the suffocating weight of reality as 4 young lives became forever tethered to the one they extinguished. For Ariana's kin, the courtroom wasn't a legal stage. It was a hollow space defined by her absence. Her father spoke of accountability rather than bloodlust. Her mother remained a pillar of composed, chilling resolve. She demanded life sentences, driven not by raw malice, but by a profound moral necessity. To her, the loss was immeasurable. She painted a portrait of a woman, not just a badge. Yet, looking at the defendants today, I felt a strange, haunting pity for those boys. I pitied them because it was clear no one had ever truly invested in their souls. No one offered them love or the belief in their potential that I poured into my daughter. My Ariana was 24, a criminal justice scholar set to graduate from Loyola on May 13th. We valued knowledge. Then, the evidence surfaced. 16-year-old Jaylen Frazier boasted to a friend that the hit was his. He opened fire on her, and then Preston was caught in the crossfire with the others. They took her life. As surreal as it sounds, I find myself praying for their families. I truly do. What kind of person views taking a life as a point of professional pride? We will endure this. Ariana will have her day of reckoning. My presence will be a constant shadow in this process. I am a mother armed with prayer, and my beautiful girl deserves the justice she should have been seeking for others. Since she cannot be here, I am her voice. When asked about a fair outcome, Dionne Moon was unwavering. Life without parole. That is the only true balance for us. She was a woman on the verge of a carefully mapped-out future, now stolen. Her prayers extended beyond her own blood to the broken youths whose path led to this tragedy. Her voice carried a deep, resonant grief, not a performance, but a permanent internal fracture. She was meant to command a courtroom, not be the subject of a memorial within one. The city mourned as one. Strangers and officials alike stood for a woman whose impact transcended her short years. Good morning. I am Commander Tyrone Pendarvis of the 5th District, and it was my honor to lead a light like Ariana Preston. I spoke with her mother during those first dark hours of mourning. Amidst her agony, she doubted if her small, quiet daughter truly fit the mold of a police officer. I asked her if we were describing the same girl, because the Ariana I knew was a force of nature. I remember when I first took command of the 5th and encountered this remarkable young woman. She refused to let me simply walk past her without a formal acknowledgement. She looked me in the eye and insisted I link her name to her face, regardless of my rank. She checked my ego instantly, reminding me that while I was the commander, she was Ariana. I needed Miss Moon to understand the depth of our affection for her daughter. I want the entire 5th District to stand now and show this mother the love we held for Ariana. We truly loved your daughter. Every officer in my command has a story. Every one of them was touched by her spirit. From holiday parties to the daily grind, she was never alone. She was part of us. We watched over her just as we watch over every member of this family. That is the truth of who she was to us. Thank you. The streets were a sea of blue and black, the silence more deafening than any eulogy. In the passing months, the city ensured that the name Ariana Preston would never fade into a statistic. In Avalon Park, a street was rebranded as Ariana M. Preston Way, tethering her soul to the very pavement where the violence erupted. That green sign transformed into something far more profound than a simple landmark. It stood as a silent witness, a public admission that her existence held weight and her loss left a scar. At Loyola University, Chicago, just 72 hours before receiving her master's, a commemorative grant was launched to honor her academic ambition. The professional path she was forced to abandon will now fund others seeking to uphold the scales of justice. Through her namesake foundation, her family weaponized their trauma into a catalyst for systemic community evolution. They focused on mentorship and protection, choosing to build safer futures rather than dwelling solely in the darkness of the past. Her legacy shifted from a static memory into a kinetic, living force that continues to influence the world she left behind. While the memorials offered a quiet grace, the legal machinery ground on entering the courtrooms of Cook County in January 2026. Preliminary hearings resumed for the 4 individuals accused of orchestrating the fatal encounter with Ariana Preston. The judiciary weighed forensic evidence and defense maneuvers to determine the parameters of the upcoming criminal proceedings. A critical ruling authorized expert ballistics testimony, allowing prosecutors to clinically link the recovered hardware to the fatal shots fired. The youngest suspect, a mere 16 years old during the commission of the act, faced the full weight of adult prosecution while remaining housed in a facility for minors due to his legal age. Defense attorneys scrambled to suppress interrogation records, their motions scrutinized by a court seeking to maintain procedural integrity. Though a specific trial date remained undetermined, the prosecution maintained a cold, methodical, and unrelenting pace toward the truth. There was no closure yet, no finality in the eyes of the law, merely the slow, clinical pursuit of accountability years after a vibrant life was extinguished in a matter of seconds. Even a full measure of justice cannot place her back at the dinner table for the holidays. No legal verdict can rewrite the history of that night or cleanse the soil where her front lawn became a crime scene. It cannot restore the decades of service she would have given or the courtroom she was destined to command as a professional. The lingering truth is simple. Ariana Preston did not perish through negligence or by taking unnecessary gambles with her safety. Her death was not the result of a personal shortcoming or failure. She fell while fulfilling her duties, a woman devoted to a future she was actively constructing until her final heartbeat. We analyze the shadows of human behavior daily, exploring the cases you recognize and those buried in time. Stay with us for more. We will see you in the next investigation. The story of Officer Ariana Preston is not just a chronicle of a crime. It is a profound testament to the fragility of dreams and the unyielding weight of choices. Ariana was a beacon of discipline, a woman balancing the dangerous midnight streets of Chicago with the rigorous pursuit of a master's degree. She was 72 hours away from a milestone that symbolized years of grit and sacrifice. Yet, her future was stolen in seconds by a surge of senseless adrenaline and hollow arrogance. The educational lesson here is a chilling reminder of consequentiality. 4 young lives are now forever shackled to the one they extinguished, proving that a moment of invincibility is a lethal illusion. Justice may move through the courts of 2026, but no verdict can replace a daughter at the dinner table. We must teach our youth that true power isn't found in the barrel of a stolen gun or the thrill of the hunt. It is found in the character Ariana built, the resolve to serve one's community and the courage to build a future through knowledge. Let her name be a call to action, to value life as a sacred, non-negotiable masterpiece, and to understand that the paths we choose today Define the shadows we leave behind tomorrow. Protect your future. Respect the life of another.